Hi class, I'm going to talk about chapter 6 in this video. So chapter 6 is the supply, demand, and government policies. All right, so let's get started. So first, know the price control. Now, remember that our economy, we usually call ourselves the market economy. By definition, market economy is when the buyer and seller come together and interact. That's called a market economy. But our economy is not a pure market economy, because our government still play an important role in our economy. Now, I'm going to talk about two aspects of the government role in the economy, and the first one is called price control. So price control is when the policymakers when they believe the market price of a good and service is unfair to either buyer and sellers, and they will actually step in and actually force a change to the price of the good. That's called price control. And or the second aspect is the government can put a tax on the good. So when they have a tax on the good, that will, on one side, it will increase the government tax revenue, but on the other side, will actually decrease the number of transactions in the economy. So still try to control how the market behaves. So our economy for America is more like a mixed economy. So price control, there are two types of price control. There's something called a price ceiling and a price floor. So a price ceiling is a legal maximum price on a good and service. So let's suppose government says that for every pound of banana, the maximum price you can charge is $1. If it's below $1, then okay. But if it's above $1, that's illegal. You cannot do it. So the $1 is the maximum price, and that's called a price ceiling. An example for price ceiling is something called a rent control. Now, in most part of the country, we don't have rent control. But if you guys ever go to San Francisco, New York City, not the state, but the city, they do have rent control apartments. Now, what those are? That is when the government actually step in, telling each landlord, says, hey, landlord, that for your apartment, this is the maximum rent you can charge. You cannot charge more than that. So that's called rent control law. Now, the reason why they have it, because rent in those markets, so San Francisco, New York City, rent can be very, very expensive, where everyday people just cannot afford it. So that's why government can actually step in and then force the price to be lower. And then the other one is called price floor. So price floor is when you have a legal minimum on the price, or legal minimum price on a good and service. That's called price floor. So let's suppose, what's a good example for it? So imagine you go to store, you want to buy a pound of banana, and then the government says that the minimum price for each pound of banana, it will be 50 cents. That means if it's above 50 cents, it's okay, but if it's below 50 cents, that will be illegal. So the minimum price is 50 cents. And an example for that will be the minimum wage law. So right now, the federal minimum wage is at $7.25. That means when you hire somebody, you can pay them as low as $7.25, but you cannot go below that. So the price floor is the minimum price you can pay for something. Okay. Now, and then when you have this price floor, price ceiling, there's a difference between a binding price floor or non-binding price floor. So a binding, it means it actually causes a change. When you have a binding price, either ceiling or floor, this would change the market price, and then which means the market outcome will be changed as well. So we're going to go over that more in the later slides. Okay. Now, let's talk about price ceiling first. So price ceiling is when you have a legal maximum price on a good and service. Now, a price ceiling is only binding when it's actually causing a change in the economy. So let's look at this panel A over here. So for panel A, now without the price ceiling, our equilibrium price is $3, and then the price ceiling is set at $4. So remember what I said before, so the price ceiling is the legal maximum price. Now, as long as you're below that, you're doing okay, because remember the legal maximum, that means you cannot go above that. Okay, so for this market here, our current price $3, and then government comes in, says, hey, whatever, who is selling this good here, so whatever company you are, the maximum price you can charge is $4. Well, that's okay, because our current price $3 is below the $4. So this $4 price ceiling have no effect on your market. So the first one here is called not binding. Okay, so remember that when you have a price ceiling that's above equilibrium price, that's non-binding. Now, vice versa, let's suppose the pricing is set at $2. So again, our own price is $3, and then the government says, hey, by the way, the highest price you can charge is $2. Well, now we got a problem because now our old price of $3 is now above the legal maximum. So we have to change. Now, how do we change it? We're going to lower the price from 3 to $2 now. So 2 will be our new price. But at a $2 new price, remember law of supply. So law of supply says when the price goes down, we supply less, right? So when the price goes down to $2, here is our new quantity supplied, which is 75. And then according to the law of demand, when the price goes down, we buy more. So here at the price ceiling, this is our quantity demanded. So we want to buy 125 unit. Company only produce 75 unit, then we're short, right? We don't have enough for all the quantity demanded. And this short is called a shortage. So when you have a binding price ceiling, the result is that you have a shortage for the economy. Okay, so non-binding, nothing happens. When you have a binding price ceiling, then this will be causing a shortage in the economy. And then guys, another example you can think of about is binding or non-binding for price ceiling. Another example for price ceiling we have in the economy, it's not a price ceiling, but like a speed ceiling, right? So when you're driving on the road, that speed limit, that's the maximum speed you can drive on the road. And you're not supposed to go over that, right? So imagine you're driving on the highway, and every day you're driving, let's say 65 miles per hour, and the government says, I'm going to put a new speed limit on this road, and the new speed limit will be at 85 miles per hour. Well, that's okay, because normally you drive 65, which is below the maximum 85, so you actually don't have to change. Now, you might want to change, you want to drive faster, but you don't have to change, okay? Now, on the other side, let's suppose the government comes in and says, we're going to put a new speed limit on this road. I know that you're driving 65 miles per hour every day, but the new speed limit will be at 50 miles per hour. So now we got a problem, right? Because before, when you're driving 65 miles per hour at a new limit, you're over the limit now. So what do? We need to slow down to the limit, right? So when you have a binding price ceiling, that means the current price or the price ceiling is below your current price, which means current price must be lowered. Okay. I want to talk about this. It's okay. You guys can read the example case study in the book. Okay. Let's get this. Yeah, just go ahead and read the case study in the book. We're not going to go over this in the PowerPoint. All right, so next we have price floor. Do I have a definition for it? All right, so price floor, or we did before, because the price floor is the legal minimum price on a good and service. So, when the price floor is non-binding, that means it will have no change whatsoever. Is when the price floor is set below the equilibrium price, and this will have no effect on the market. Now, however, if your price floor is set above equilibrium, this is called a binding constraint, and this will cause a surplus for the economy. So, go back. Let's suppose that this market over here. So right now, our current price for ice cream is at $3, and then government says the new price floor, which is the legal minimum, it will be at $2. Now, what that means whatever ice cream you sell, the minimum price has to be $2. You cannot go below that. Well, that's fine, because our current price at $3 is already above the minimum, so we don't have to change anything. So this is called a not binding. So for the price floor, when it's below equilibrium, we call this a non-binding. Now, vice versa, if the price floor is set at $4, so again, our current price is $3, and then the government says the minimum price you can sell for ice cream will be at $4. So now our $3 is below the minimum, which is not good. So we must increase that to the minimum. So when you have a price floor that's set above equilibrium price, this is called a binding constraint, and this will cause a change in the economy. Now, what that changes at $4, price goes up. At this point, that's our quantity supplied, and that's our quantity demanded. So that's a D. Let me erase that. Quantity demanded. All right, so what that means our companies will produce 120 unit, and our consumers only buys 80 unit. Now, what do we have this difference here? This is called a surplus. Okay, so binding price floor, it will cause a surplus in the economy. Right. Let's talk about this. I know I said this is a case study, but this is an important subject. So many cities, also states in America, they have been trying to increase the minimum wage to a higher level. So right now, the federal minimum wage is 7.25. But at different areas, so New York City is already trying to increase our minimum wage to $15 per hour. California is in the process. LA already passed the law. San Francisco also passed the law, and I think Seattle is the first city in America to actually increase to $15 per hour. So why would the cities want to increase the minimum wage to a higher level? It's because right now the minimum wage is even at 7.25. Now 7.25, you look at it on paper, 7.25 has been the highest ever. But 7.25 is actually worth less compared to before. Now, the reason why, because back in 1965, when minimum wage was first set up, it was $1.25 per hour. But your $1.25 per hour in 1965 can buy more stuff compared to 7.25 in 2015. So which means the 7.25 minimum wage is actually below the $1.25 minimum wage back in 1965. So that's why many people are saying that this minimum wage is not a living wage, that you cannot live off that. So to increase or to raise the standard living for many of the minimum wage workers, that many people are actually protesting, asking for a higher minimum wage. But when the minimum wage is actually increasing, it might not be a good thing for all those minimum wage workers. A couple of points. The first point is that, for one, minimum wage is a price floor. So if you set your price floor too high, so let's just suppose right now we have a labor market, so supply for labor, and then we have a demand for labor. Let's suppose right now the equilibrium price for wage is at $10 per hour. Now, and then we say we're going to increase our minimum wage to $15 per hour. So at $15 per hour, we're going to have a situation like this, because when the wage goes higher, workers want to produce more. So there'll be more number of workers looking for a job because they want to work at a higher wage level. But companies at a higher wage, they want to hire less people. So company is on the demand side of labor. So your quantity supplied is more than quantity demanded. Then this difference here, we call this a surplus. Surplus in a labor market is also called unemployment. So a higher minimum wage, or effective higher minimum wage, will be causing more unemployment among low-skilled workers. So you might actually hurt some people like that. They had a job before, but now increase minimum wage, they don't have a job anymore. And then the second point is that many of the goods we buy are produced, or service that we hire are produced by minimum wage workers. So if we increase the minimum wage for those workers, they don't get a higher paycheck. But at the same time, company in return, they'll be charging a higher price to everybody else. So you, me, and everybody else who is not making a minimum wage, but the stuff we buy be more expensive. So we might be getting worse off. Now, at the same time, the minimum wage workers who are actually shopping at the minimum wage stores. So imagine if you have an employee who is working for McDonald's and making $7.25, and then he always shop at Walmart. So imagine if everybody increased minimum wage to $15 per hour, this guy's getting a bigger paycheck from McDonald's. But once he brings his bigger paycheck to Walmart, when everything become more expensive, he might not be that better off. Okay, so this increased prices can hurt everybody in the economy. So that's why to have socially for society, we should increase our minimum wage at least to maybe not 15, but more like a $10, because right now it's really too low. But also keep in mind a higher minimum wage might hurt a lot of people in the economy. Okay. All right, let's keep going. All right, the second aspect that when the government can influence our market is the area of tax. That every time the government charge a tax, and this will cause our economy to adjust, and this is also government control. So for this tax, so how does tax work? Right? We all pay tax. I mean, the most common tax you can think of is the sales tax, right? So everything you buy, depends on where you are, there might be a sales tax on it. So let's say for right now in Texas, most sales tax 8.25%. So let's say you buy a good that's worth $100, and then with tax, that will be what TAX. So with tax, that will be 108.25. Okay, so tax is add on to the price of the good. Now this tax, you can also think tax as the difference between the price buyer pays minus the price seller receive. So in this case here, our buyers will pay $108.25, but the seller they will only receive $100. So the 8.25%, that is your tax. Okay, so tax is also the difference between how much buyer pays and how much seller receive. By the way, the 8.25%, if you want to know how much of this is paying to the federal government, so for taxes, your 8.25%, 6.25% is paying to the state. 1% is paying to the county, and 1% is paying to the city. So which means 0% is paying to the federal government. That's why it's called a state and local tax. And that's why if you go to many states, some states in America, they don't even have a sales tax. So state of Oregon and the state of Alaska, they don't have a sales tax. So whatever you buy over there, you can save your 8.25%. Okay. All right. Oh, I forgot to mention this. So when you have a tax, if you tax on the buyer, the demand curve will be shifted to the left. If you tax on the sellers, the supply curve will also shift to the left. So it doesn't matter which curve you tax on, that curve will always shift to the left. Now let me show you how that actually works. Okay, so we suppose we do a tax on the sellers, so your supply curve will be shift left. Now, in practice, it wouldn't be, I mean, it doesn't look like it's shifting to the left, but it looks like it's shifting higher. Now, when it shifts higher, this difference, that's exactly how much tax is. So don't think your tax on the seller that your supply curve shift to the left. Think it as a tax on the sellers, the supply curve will shift higher by exactly how much the tax is. So you're gonna have a new supply curve. And then once you have a new supply curve, you're gonna have a new equilibrium quantity. Does an example provide that? There we go. So the new quantity will be at 90. And then this P with this $33.33, that is the price for buyer. That's how much buyer pays. And to see how much seller receive, from this point, your new equilibrium go down to your old supply curve. And then right here, let me see how much this is. So right here at 250, that's how much the price seller receive. Okay, so couple steps. The first step you do, you shift your supply curve higher by exactly how much taxes. And then once you have a new supply curve, when intersecting with our old demand curve here, this new equilibrium, go to the left, find out how much your price for buyer is, and then from this new equilibrium, go down to your old supply curve, and this is how much the price for seller is, and the quantity also goes down to only 90. Okay, so buyer price 330, seller price is 280, and then the quantity is only 90 now. So when you have a tax, buyer pays more, seller receives less, and then quantity goes down. So when buyer pays more, buyers are worse off. When seller receives less, sellers are worse off. So which means the entire market is worse off. But who is better off? Well, the answer is government, because government now they can collect more revenues. And also for the tax, now let me go back. Notice this one says a tax on seller, right, for 50 cents. But let's look at how much the price really increased for sellers or buyers. So we intend to put the tax on sellers. That means when seller sells good, seller pay for the price or pay for the tax. But what really happening is that after the tax is imposed, the buyer price, so before the tax, buyer was paying $3, but now with the tax, buyer is paying $3.30. So which means the price for buyer is increased by 30 cents. And then if you look at the sellers, before the tax, seller was receiving $3, and now with the tax, seller only received $2.80. So how much seller receiving is going down by 20 cents. So this 50 cents tax, it wasn't paid by the seller entirely. this 50 cents tax is actually shared between buyer and sellers. Because in this case here, buyer pays 30 cents more, so buyer pays 30 cents tax, and then seller received 20 cents less, so seller paid only 20 cents tax. And together, that's your total tax of 50 cents. So when you put a tax on buyer and sellers, more than likely the tax will be shared between buyer and sellers. Now, the question is, why would they do that, right? So why would the buyers want to pay for part of the seller tax, and vice versa? Why would the sellers want to pay for part of the buyer tax? There is a commercial on the radio in Houston. I hear many times that there is a furniture company. I don't remember which company, but there is a furniture company on the radio that says that if you buy furniture from them, they will pay for your sales tax. Well, let's think about it, right? So why would a company pay for the buyer's sales tax? Now, if you don't pay for the buyer's sales tax, nobody might buy the furniture from you. So how much money do you make? You make nothing, right? But if you pay for the buyer's sales tax, then some people might buy the furniture from you. Now, you don't make that much money, but you make a little bit money. And little money is better than no money, right? So that's why companies have an incentive to pay for the buyer tax. And another one, the reason why is the company want to pay for the buyer is actually paying the seller's tax. That more than often, if the seller end up paying higher taxes, they will roll the higher taxes into the price of the good. So when buyer buy the good, they'll be paying a higher price for it. So it doesn't look like they're paying the tax, but because the higher price has the tax included, so the buyer is also paying part of the seller tax. All right, so if you tax the buyers, your demand curve shift to the left. Let me show you how that looks like. So if you tax the buyers, your demand curve will be shifting to the left, so it goes this way. But don't think this as a shifting left. Think this as the demand curve go down by exactly how much the tax is. So this difference here, this vertical difference, so when the demand curve shift down, this vertical difference is 50 cents. So when you have a tax on buyers, demand curve shift down by 50 cents. And then you're going to have a new equilibrium. From this new equilibrium, go down, get your quantity. And then also from this new equilibrium, of actually from this quantity here, go to the supply curve. This is the price for seller. And also from this quantity, go to your old demand curve. This is the old demand curve. And this is the price for buyer. Okay, let's see how much they are. So your seller price is 280, and then buyer price 330. And then together, that's 50 cents tax. Okay, and again, this tax is also shared. So 30 cents paid by the seller, a buyer, 20 cents paid by the seller. But notice how this 30 and 20 is the same thing as when we put a tax on the seller, right? Since the seller tax is also 330 and 280. So what that means doesn't matter which party you put a tax on. So either you put a tax on the buyer or put a tax on the seller, the end result is all the same. The buyer pays more, seller receives less, and then the quantity will go down to a lower level. Okay, let me see what else we could talk about. That's a case study. You guys can study that. Okay, so what made the difference? So who decide which party pays more or less tax? Remember this, guys. Between a buyer and sellers, whoever is more inelastic, that means they're less likely to change, they will end up paying a higher portion of the tax. And then whoever is elastic, that means they're very price sensitive, then they will pay a smaller portion of the tax. Okay, let me see. Okay, for now we'll talk about this. All right, so that's it for this chapter. Guys, I'll upload chapter 7 very soon. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me. Okay, good luck. See you later.